Hello and welcome to the Building Our World podcast, the podcast that looks to uncover the human stories behind human innovation by speaking with the key players from the Berlin tech ecosystem. Now, this episode is quite extraordinary. It is an amazing founder's story from Frederik Fahning, who is the co-founder or one of the co-founders at Zenjob in Berlin, a company that is looking to revolutionize the working world sustainably through the use of technology. Now, in this episode, we go through Frederik's personal journey and also that of Zenjob's, but we start off by looking into a time where Zenjob almost didn't make it. Their investors pulled out and it could have gone either way. Now, they got through it and have flourished into the amazing sort of Berlin company they are today. But what strikes me in this particular story was Frederik's calmness and certainty of his vision. It was a real remarkable trait, and he must be one of the calmest people in Berlin tech, a really smooth operator. So if you are an aspiring founder or looking to start a business, or maybe you're just in the trenches right now, going through a real rough patch, honestly, listen to Frederik's story, listen to his wisdom, listen to his advice, and I promise you'll get a lot of value from it. But anyway, enough from me. Let's get this episode started. Okay, so Frederik Fahning, founder of Zenjob, good morning. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alex. Welcome to you too. Thanks a lot for the invitation and for having me.
No worries. Finally get you on. I've been, as I said before, just before we were on air, been following Zenjob for a while and following their journey being in Berlin tech, and came across yourself and came across your TED Talk where you were talking about the future of work and how different generations approach work. And I really want to dig into that later on. But when founders come on, it's the founder's story and the human story that is most interesting, because being a founder is really rare. It's an extreme thing. Businesses are the only things in our society, I think, that we willfully let die, and we don't try and save them, which is a high risk thing to do. So one thing that flagged up to me during your TED Talk was a phase in the early days of Zenjob. I think you even said the date, Friday, December the 23rd, 2016, where you were almost facing bankruptcy. Obviously, since then have bounced back and flourished, but that seems like a really extreme, critical moment for a business, but also for a human being as well. So I'd love for you to start for just unwrapping that story.
Of course, happy to do so. I guess I should start maybe just a little bit earlier, when we founded the company roughly a year before. And after finding a little bit, at least, our proof of concept, until we realized, okay, some people really need this out there, making our first revenues, getting licenses, things like that. Things were flourishing, actually. We were ramping up quite quickly, and therefore we were not expecting anything like this at that moment. But when we did our first fundraising in summer 2016, we knew by the end of the year we wanted to raise money again, and we needed to raise money again as well. And we were talking to investors, and we realized there's good interest, so we kicked it off, the fundraising process, but in the end we failed, and the investors pulled out at a fairly late moment also, which was quite a crucial one then for us, because we knew we will be in the need of money. And what you were talking about, what I was mentioning also, is that we had a Christmas party on the Thursday, the 22nd, actually, in the evening, and then on the 23rd, on the Friday, my co-founders got to me were ringing me up, and I was coming out, and we were talking about of how can we do this, what shall we do, otherwise we will run out of money. And we were all a little bit hungover at this moment from our Christmas party, but at the same time we knew we need to act quickly, and we took then the time over Christmas to think. We were a lot on the phone, we were chatting with each other, meeting, and then we realized in early of January that we will need to go to in front of the team. We were around, 40, 50 people back then. And and we will need to turn some things around. And we made some tough decisions, also some people-wise tough decisions. We looked a lot in our cash flow management, and we made improvements very, very quickly. But at the same time, we were in front of our people and we're saying, hey, this will be a rough time, rough weeks, and we don't know if we're going to make it. It will be very interesting, but it's completely fine and understandable if you want to leave right now. But if you want to stay, then we might make it. And we were always having this story, actually, we shared with the movie Shawshank Redemption, and we were always looking at the shit pipe. And we were looking at how is this guy going to come out. And so we do, together also with our former COO, who played a big part in this, we defined what are the parts of how to get out of this shit pipe. And well, in the end, we finally got out of the shit pipe, and the investors looked at what we did and the decisions we took, and that's why in the end they did invest. So we had 2-3 months which were very intense, very emotional, but that's, I think, also what got us together a lot, what brought the team and us together a lot, and which we still profit by every day.
So what was it like when you heard the news that they have pulled out, they weren't going to invest, and this was probably, I'm guessing, the first time where you thought this could not work now, this could be a failure? How did you approach that mentally? And this was over the Christmas period as well. Did that sort of lower your self-esteem or confidence or anything like that? Did you tie your success and failure to the business? How was that for you personally?
Well, I have to say that pretty much from the early days on, I got taught by our first investor and also by my co-founders, who were a lot more experienced than I was back then. And one of my co-founders, Gian, already co-founded 2 companies before. I knew that we can fail every day. And with this attitude, we started Zenjob. And therefore, I was always basically more or less aware of the fact that this might end tomorrow. And for me, at the same time, not having that much experience yet, it was an adventure. It was at the same time seeing that opportunity that we have a chance of changing the future of work. I was also amazed and excited by the fact that we are now starting a company and that we are employing people and that we have talents, as we call our students, outside working for Zenjob. And when that moment arrived, for me, this was a little bit like, okay, I thought this is going to happen at some point. But at the same time, everyone was so positive. We had this moment where we realized, okay, we need to change a lot. Otherwise, the lights are out in 3 weeks. But I never had this feeling that we can't make it. Somehow, by having these conversations, also chatting with our investors, but also of the people at Zenjob, the team, I realized that we have great chances to succeed. And if it's not going to work with those investors, then maybe with others. But I was so convinced that we can make it. I never had this feeling of there is no chance and the company is going to die soon. But of course, at the same time, every day you are looking at what you can change and what you can't. And time is ticking, and you look at the bank account. And that was also still a stage, because we were talking around our Series A, where there is a moment where investors will say, okay, I'm going to let that company die, because otherwise it will get too expensive. So there was a real chance that we will fail. But I think there was so much positive energy in the room that I never thought it's an issue.
But even with that positive energy and all those people around you checking the bank account and that sort of, did you have a case of was it a chronically stressful situation in terms of, how did it affect your personal life? And did you share that kind of stuff with your family?
Absolutely. And this had an effect. My girlfriend back then, I also remember having lots of conversation with her and sharing with her a lot of what's going on with Zenjob. But then later, I actually realized that I was putting there a lot of my own problems also in the relationship, as well as sharing this with my family or with my parents, that it was so mandatory for me to think about this all the time and also over the holidays. That I think at that moment it might have affected also a few people around. But at the same time, I knew that this is now our moment. And this is also my moment where we need as founders to be there and to give, positive signals to everyone that we can make. It doesn't really matter if it's the team or the investors. So yes, I did share it. I did share it with friends. I shared it with family. But I have co-founders where I always had the chance also to talk very honestly about everything. And so we had fairly quickly this common understanding. I guess that's also what kept us together until now, and also what pushed us a lot in the beginning. And because we were immediately in love with the idea. We were in love, and we are still in love with the idea of changing the future of work. And we saw and still see a gigantic potential of what you can do in this market. But at the same time, of course, in the beginning, we didn't know each other, right? It was a random get together. As I was saying, right, one of the co-founders, Gian, coming more from a technical background, co-founded two companies. Fritz, now CEO, he was at Rocket Internet and working as a CMO for Treatwell. And for me, I had a legal background. I was working for a startup, but I didn't have at all the same experience like the guys. But we were all coming together at our first investor, Atlantic Internet, and that was this moment where we realized, okay, the chemistry is right somehow, and that's also what helped us the most, I believe, in those more critical moments.
So you're only a little bit grumpy on that Christmas 2016, the Christmas lunch.
Well, I mean, grumpy, no. I think it was more. I don't know if exciting is really the right word because it sounds so positive, right? But it has this mix of exciting and anxiety. I don't know. It is this where you realize, okay, this is a very, very crucial moment, but I never had this situation. I really have to say it like that, quite honestly, that I never had this. In German, you will say Kopf in den Sand stecken, that you didn't really know of what to do next, or I do remember, though, a fairly straightforward lunch I had with one of my co-founders, where especially he was panicking a lot also in that moment, and I needed to play the part of calming him down and so on. At the same time, I didn't know at all of what to do, right, and didn't have the experience to share. But maybe I had or maybe that is a strength, I don't know, of mine in that moment, to stay a little bit more calm, and that's what helped me also then in those
days. I mean, that's remarkable, because most people in that situation, I'm fairly new to the whole, I set up my business last June and all good so far, but most people in that situation, like, would be struggling to sleep, would be pretty irrational, panicking. So is that just like a natural quality you have, where you don't let the highs get you too high and the lows get you too low? You stay pretty consistent?
I believe it's a combination. I mean, for sure, this is to a certain degree part of, I hope at least, of my character. But at the same time, it is what I was mentioning before, my co-founders and the idea of what we want to achieve and the team we had back then. I think that's what really makes the difference. If you know that in general you are on the right track, and this is now a hiccup, and this is a hiccup where you need to find a workaround, and you have strong people you can share your troubles with and also your ideas with all the time, as we did, right? I mean, we were just constantly on the phone. I was going to Hamburg to my family, and the other one stayed in Berlin, one more to Frankfurt. But at the same time, we were all connected all the time. We were sharing new ideas or troubles you might have. And that's why you have this feeling of, hey, the idea is right, the team is right, we just need to work around this now, and then we will be successful in the future. But again, at the same time, this might end pretty soon as well. And I guess what helped there was also that also our investors told us, if there is a moment where we see this is not going to work, we will do something new, right? We will do something new with you. We believe you as a team, and we would love to continue whatever makes sense. So I think it was for sure a combination. It's not that I just were able to deal with this on my own, but to have very, very strong people around and to have a strong idea in which you believe in. I think those are the major drivers.
That's pretty remarkable. A lot of people would have combusted in that situation. So coming back to that time where you don't know whether it's going to happen, whether you're going to make it work, and then you get everyone into a room and basically are really honest with them and just say, we might not make it. If we don't make it, essentially you're out of a job. And you said no one left after that. Why do you think nobody left? And how hard did you and these people work in the sort of few weeks after to make that?
That's a very good question. I think no one left because what we were telling the people and what our team saw in each other before and believing in the idea at the same time, I think everyone just was under the same impression that this can work and that we might fail. And then I think the spirit of the team was also that, okay, maybe then I really need to look for another job, but I do want to see this now. I do want to be part of this adventure. And if it's going to work, then it's going to be crazy. And this atmosphere of pulling your sleeves up together with with a shit pipe I was describing already, that gave everyone a perspective, like a dynamic, and that was crazy to see. As you said, like no one left, and it was really, really true. No one did leave, and there was also on a personal note, we also had one in the management team, which then we were also announcing to the team like, hey, it's just going to be the three of us afterwards. So there was lots of stuff going on, but I think this atmosphere of let's do this together helped a lot. And then, yeah, the next couple of weeks were quite intense. I mean, we had working students, 18, 20 years old. And, no one cared, right? They did the job. Everyone was working until the very night. And of course, at some point, we were also trying to celebrate like minor achievements until 10, but then having some beers together afterwards. It was just a great atmosphere where you saw, okay, if we succeed with this little hiccup here, then this does have a chance to get very, very big. And a lot of those people actually also are still with Zenjob, right? It's not that we just change all the time. No, we just yesterday celebrated again also our anniversaries, Zeniversaries as we call it, and we have lots of people also for 4 years or longer with Zenjob, and I think that's a great asset that we have. And culture is very, very important for us. We defined this in the first year of Zenjob, our values as well as how do we want to live by them. And I think because we are also as founders, for us, culture is very important. And that's one of the reasons which helped us already back then.
It's interesting because with like younger generations as well, and like Gen Z, and millennials too, the sort of perception is that if there isn't much in it for them, then they probably won't stick around and they'll look for something else. Almost like the employee has so much power these days than maybe in our parents' generation. And we will come on to that maybe a bit later on. But one thing I wanted to ask, so you are part of an entrepreneurial family. I think you mentioned in that talk that your dad ran a small fashion house in Hamburg. Now, in one way, I'm quite jealous of that because growing up, education was like really, really valued. And I'm so glad it was valued in my household because I went to university, I got a good education, and it kind of brought me up because I was basically rubbish at anything else. But the entrepreneurial side of things and starting businesses was never, ever on the radar. How much did that shape you and your approach to starting companies? And how much has that helped you in being a founder at Zenjob?
Yes, I believe that is of a great help, and it's a lot about the mindset. I think I was lucky, very, very lucky, that I could profit from the conversations also having with my parents around how is it to run a business and what are these exciting parts of running a business. And I think from a fairly early age on, out of the conversations, I realized that this would be something I would love to do. Of course, as a kid, I was more into racing, but maybe then later, that to being an entrepreneur was always a dream of mine. Not that early, I have to say. I thought I'm going to look more into venture capital first to understand how can you actually raise money before founding your own company. But I'm very glad that it also happened earlier. And I think the mindset just helps you to understand how great it can be to make your own decisions and to go with people together in a fight of achieving something great. That's why, for example, I could never imagine to do something on my own. I very much admire this also when people are able to make that decision, but I am coming also from team sports, and I always love the idea of sharing success and failures together with others. And those conversations also with my parents, I think in the early days helped me to understand it's to be an entrepreneur is a gift, and you can be happy if you're able to do this, and you can make decisions on your own. You can inspire others. That is something which I think is not, for example, taught enough in schools, especially here in Germany. And you don't really understand how is it really to run a business. But it's something which helps you in every situation, and it doesn't really matter, by the way, if you're founding your own company or if you're working and are employed. In entrepreneurial mindset, that's what, right? That's often why startups are looking so often for people as employees with an entrepreneurial mindset, because it just helps you to make quicker decisions, to try something, to risk something. It's completely fine if you fail and then you just try something new. But to push like that is something which you can benefit from, I think, in business life as well as in your private life.
Absolutely fascinating. What do you think should change in the school system? Because it's the same in the UK. That it might be different now, but you kind of learn from books. You learn by rote a little bit, and it's all very much you're in a system, and you've got to hit certain stuff, get certain grades, and then you're on to the next level in the system. What do you think could change in the education system in Europe?
When you learn about economics, or when you have economics to study, it's often, as are your other fields, just in the general knowledge consumption instead of really understanding of what do you need to do. We did have something like that, actually, to be fair, in our school, which was back then also fairly new, where you more or less theoretically were founding your own company. But that was a very small project and just 10 people were participating. That was great, actually. I mean, we tried something which failed gigantically. We wanted to have pillows for our football club in Hamburg, HSV, which is unfortunately always playing a little bit shitty. But anyway, you cannot choose your club. So therefore, we were doing those pillows. And I don't even know if we really sold one, but it was a lot of fun. Anyway, so I think that will help a lot if you push courses like that, make them mandatory, and try to get that mindset of how do you start something on your own? What kind of decisions did you need to take? How risk averse, or how much should you be aware of risks? All of those things, I think, should be taught in a very much more proactive way. And it's also not too complicated. You can also just work a lot with entrepreneurs, CEOs. I think there will be so many people glad also to give some input and to help out. Of course, you do have that on a little bit different scale in universities, but then on a university, you made maybe already your decision, right? Maybe you made your decision to study medicine, to study law, or to study geography, or whatever it might be, and you don't even get in contact anymore. Especially in Germany, there is a fairly and I think that's a little bit different also to the UK and especially to the US, weird picture of entrepreneurs, right? It's often still a little bit like, why are these people doing this? And it's not really pushed by the public as it is in the US, or I believe also in the UK.
Yeah, I would say definitely entrepreneurship is more celebrated in the UK. I think the US is the top level, though. I think it's really, they have a great attitude where they're not almost scared of failure. And I think what comes from fear of entrepreneurship and starting companies is that your parents, it's almost like worrying about what other people and families think. Your parents don't want you to fail because the family kind of two doors down will judge you, and they just want to put you in a high paying profession, work your way up, and get a lovely house with a nice car. So I think that's massively, but like failing and starting businesses is very much more celebrated in the US. But I think that's changing with Gen Z, and this kind of comes on to what Zenjob does as well. So I'm sure you'll explain it in a lot better detail than I would. So it'd be awesome if you could just explain what Zenjob does in terms of its platform, and also sort of intertwined with that, how does this new generation compare? How does their attitude and approach to work compare to, say, our parents' generation and times gone by?
Happy to do so. I think, again, to start at the beginning, why did we do this? We were walking around in Berlin and we were chatting with retailers, hotels, gastronomy, whatever it might be, as well as students at the bigger universities here in Berlin. And we wanted to ask them, when it comes to work, what's missing? Because that was actually the basic idea in the beginning. Work is a gigantic field. There is not the disruption yet, which we believe it should have. Let's ask the people, where's the pain? And we were walking and we were asking. We always heard two things: it's about flexibility and it's about not taking really care of anything. And that's why, on a legal note, we choose the path of employing actually the people and not just connecting them with a classifieds model approach. And then on the tech side, we build, of course, apps, two apps for the students, as well as a company app for the companies to use. And then the magic, if you want, in the middle, our platform, our backend, where we bring those companies and the students together. With that, we started here in Germany, and what we do mainly is we were focusing on short-term jobs, right? We said in the beginning, hey, if we want to make this big, we first need to find our books like Amazon. And our books are basically the student in Germany who works short-term, easy jobs, easy money on the side.
Yeah.
Because we thought if we kick off with that, we do have the highest chance to find some standardization and automation. And that's why we are still very much focused actually on this. So with Zenjob, you just have your job in your pocket if you want, and you can work anywhere you want, for whom, for how much. You choose. You can onboard yourself while sitting at home in your bed, maybe having a little hangover from the party before. And then on the Sunday, you can start working already. And on Monday, you get already half of your salary and the rest by the end of the month. And for now, we are very much focused on those typical student engagements. We do gigantic concerts like the Rolling Stones in Hamburg, for example, where you can work and support the staff. And we work with big retailer chains. Of course, COVID changed also a lot in that regard. So we needed to shift to food retailers as well as logistic companies and e-commerce logistic companies. But we do have quite a variety of jobs. But we were always focused on that approach because we knew this is something we are the only ones where we can who can do this, right? We, in the first year already, we were able, if a hotel needs someone in 20 minutes, we can push a notification to 5,000 students in Berlin and someone will show up. And that's what we believed is missing on the market, and that's where we started. And then later we added, for example, long-term jobs. That means that you can work as a student also for 1 to 9 months, because we realized, okay, lots of people enjoy actually that flexibility, but some people want to rather have some stronger commitment and stability also for their income. And that's why we added more long-term jobs. Quite recently, we launched the Netherlands, and we will add as a new target group this year also the people who are working actually in part-time to our students. And to come to your second question, or the second part, the Gen Z, I mean, in the beginning, we thought, okay, with what kind of people we should kick this off. And when we kicked off Zenjob, and we were internally maybe 4 people, we were 4 people at 2 desks actually, we started having interviews, completely random, right? We just had a straightforward landing page with something with job, where you ended up when looking for a side job. And we did interviews. I had the interviews sometimes for an hour or so, and we were talking with people 18 years old, 50, 70, coming from all of the places all over the world, having completely different professional backgrounds, academic backgrounds, and so on. And then we thought, okay, we believe there is a sweet spot with students and the Gen Z, because that generation believes in flexibility. They believe in self-determination. And at the same time, I do have to admit, there's also great benefit also on the B2B side, because the companies love to have students. Students are digital natives. They're easy to adapt. They easily adapt a different new business model. And those things combined basically were helping us to make the decision to go for students and the next generation. And as we very much believe in the idea of self-determination with Zenjob, we thought that Gen Z is basically the perfect generation, because it doesn't really matter if it's in a business life. Also, I think you can see this also with Fridays for Future and all of those things. It's an active generation. It's a generation who wants to make the decision on their own. And that's why we wanted to provide them with a platform on their phone for now, for easy money on the side short term, but then hopefully in the long run for a great variety of different things. But having a power shift at the same time from the employer to the employee.
I think that's the biggest difference with this new generation, is that they hold a lot of power, and they know they hold a lot of power in regards to the employer, maybe in times gone by. And I kind of see this with like older C-level people in some companies, or companies that I've heard of and spoken to people about, is that, I mean, I'm of the opinion that if you're a founder, you work for your employees, because without your employees, you are nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening. And I think that is pretty accepted now amongst younger founders, but sort of people in their like maybe 40s or 50s, or that sort of generation, very much of the opinion that you do as you're told, you get your work done, you progress, and kind of I'm in charge. And you see that as well with like political activism in this new generation too, Greta Thunberg and people taking up causes, Black Lives Matter, all that sort of stuff, is that, and they're using the internet as well to harness that new power that they have.
Fully agreed. And that is actually one of the greatest learnings I had in the beginning, that exactly, you said it in a very nice way. We work for our employees. And you can also say, if you don't have the greatest people in your team, you will not achieve anything. And one of my biggest learnings was in the beginning that you will always need to find people for your company and also for your own team who are smarter, better, more experienced than you are yourself. And when you are a first-time founder, as I am, of course, that is also scary at the same time, right? Because your co-founders who are more experienced, they tell you this, and you think like, aha, okay. But at the same time, you're worried, right? What does that mean for you? And that was a great learning. And we quite recently, we hired 1 year ago our amazing chief revenue officer with having a gigantic experience. And everyone can see also how Zenjob as a company as a whole, and we as founders, can profit from this. And therefore, I fully agree with you. I think top down, bottom up are also things often mentioning in that context. You talked about the little bit older founder generation, or people maybe also coming from consultancies and then start founding a company, sometimes having a little bit different approaches. But for us, I think from the very beginning, and I hope the team is gonna not, if they listen to this, we thought from the very beginning it's a bottom-up approach. We are just good if our people are good. We are nothing without the team, and yes, that's why I can underline this 100%.
Awesome. And what about you for the future, your ambitions? Why are you doing all this? One of the exercises that really stuck with me was someone once said, where do you visualize, where do you see yourself, not in 5 years, but like in 20, 30 years, and not where do you see yourself, what do you visualize? Are you doing this? Do you visualize yourself being part of head of a massive company and building up something? Do you see yourself sitting in a mansion with lots of swimming pools and cocktails because you've just done a big exit and you've got millions in the bank? How do you visualize yourself 20, 30 years time? Why are you doing all this? Why do you put yourself through all this nonsense?
Well, of course, this depends a lot on the journey of Zenjob, right? But I think it's fair to say, if we're talking about a 20 to 30 year scope, then it's fair to say that Zenjob probably at some point took a turn where hopefully it's the leader or one of the leaders when it comes to work, at least in Europe. We want to empower the workforce of the future, right? That's our claim. That's our purpose. That's why we are here. And the only moment where we succeeded this, if someone who is 16, 15 in school thinks about a job, the first thing which pops in mind is Zenjob. I think to achieve this, it's a very, very long way, and you can take this way lots of different angles, right? You can have an IPO, you can get some very, very strong investors on board. You can try to make a profitable business out of this fairly early on. But again, I think if we're talking about a scope which is that long, well, I would love actually to do this again. I can tell you already. without even knowing when this is going to end, if this is going to end. If it's going to end, then I would love to do this again. It's just that this dynamic, this spirit, this team spirit of founding a company, I so far can say is for me the best thing I can imagine. And to share this trip, this journey with others, to go through those successes and failures is for me the best thing, the best part of the job, actually. So therefore, I would love to do this again. And afterwards, well, I would love to actually then, some people would say give back. You can also just say, I would love to switch sides and I would love to invest myself, right? I would love to help companies grow. I would love to be a part of lots more other companies, but more from an outsider point of view, and to see how other companies can grow, how other founders team can grow, and how you can maybe play a little part in this. And so to switch sides at some point and to be on the investing side. And that one I would also love to do for a very, very long time. I think something I also saw in my parents is that if you're fit and if you can combine everything, family and work, then I'm happy to do this as long as I can. And yeah, maybe at some point, if you then can also spend some time at lovely places in the world, to see the world, to travel the world, that is also something I was always fond of, and I would love to do then maybe even more. But hopefully then at that point, also family is playing a bigger part anyway, and then it's going to be interesting to see what are the desires of the family, desires of the kids, and so on. So yeah, looking forward. But first, I would love to do this again, and then maybe to switch sides and give back.
Amazing. Over the past few years and sort of present day, how much do you think about work? How has it affected the personal life?
I think I do think a lot about work, but not in a way where it troubles me. More in a way that I think, and that's the same for everyone founding a company, you somehow always think about the company, but it's not in a way that it troubles you, meaning it's not like, okay, shit, I need to do this, or I forgot to do that, and here's something, but it's rather that we have almost every day, maybe every other day, we will have calls with each other and talk. And then you sometimes chat privately. And then at the same time, you didn't even realize you talk about Zenjob again. So it's more a way of Zenjob is always with you. It's also the same when you're doing vacation, but it's not in a troubling way, at least not for me right now. And that might be different for others. That might be also depending on the situation you're in and the role you're in. And I think then it can be troubling, actually, if you always have this with you, but in this idea of, oh, I'm going to fail tomorrow, or I need to do 10 other things, then your private life will also suffer from this. But if it's in a way of always thinking, what can we do better, and where should the company go? Or if you talk about people issues, for example, I don't know. For me, this is not really, that's not stressful. That's exciting. But of course, you do realize some stuff also afterwards when you maybe talked a little bit too much about work, and then at the next day you realize, okay, maybe there was a little bit too much, or on vacation.
Yeah.
That was also for us, I think, in the beginning, and again, lots different from founders to founders or from team to team, that everyone finds also their moments, with Gian and Fritz both having families already, 3 kids. Everyone is finding their moments also to basically shut down the phone and be with the family, and to not have Zenjob around every time.
It's super important. You don't want to sort of be anxious about things to do. From my sport background, you don't want to play the match before you've actually played it. Sort of don't want it to go over in your mind, because that's exhausting and it just saps energy. But you are so right. It is difficult not to talk about it. The one thing I realized starting my own business was that, no one cares about this business as much as me.
Yeah.
And like my poor girlfriend, like when I was setting this up, I'd be like, oh my God, look at this logo. Like, oh, look at this web design, oh, we just signed up this new client, and like, she's nice and we'll go, oh, well done. But I know, they never care. They never care as much as you do.
That's a nice description of this feeling that sometimes you don't see it yourself. You just, it's the middle of the universe. Why shouldn't everyone also care about it? same way. And then when you're on your phone with your co-founders, of course they do also care in the same way. They're natural. But then suddenly you realize in private life that it's not the same for everyone else. And then maybe at some point you just turn into a speaker who is just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there I also had some learnings for sure.
Yeah, me too. Shut up about your logo. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll wrap up soon. I know you're pretty busy guy. One thing before we end, if there are any aspiring founders out there, someone maybe at university or in a startup or in a big corporate and has an idea and wants to kind of take action on it, what advice would you give them?
The big question. There is, I think, a fairly plain answer to this, which still has lots of truth in it. Just do it. That's you were earlier asking me about how did that help to have that entrepreneurial background. I think that's exactly what helps a lot in that moment. You can find 1,000 reasons why you don't do something. And I very much remember the moment of the day of our first revenues. And that was actually my co-founder, Fritz, who was saying like, hey guys, it's enough now. Let's do this shit. Because we had enough research, we had our legal license, we had the first tech product, but we were still so scared of, but should we really do this? Do the first job? And that was also him as just saying, yeah, of course, we're going to do this now. And that is basically the same when starting or when founding your company. Just do it, because you will learn so much on the way. You will realize that in tech and product, that is actually the philosophy, right? Do something, test it, A/B test it, and then do it again. You will just learn from the failures, and just do it is a big helper, I think, when it comes to this. Otherwise, I have to admit, I don't have that much wisdom to share in that regard, because of course, this is one of the biggest questions out there. But if you are a entrepreneur, you have the feeling that you want to do something on your own and that you get great feedback, share it, babe. Maybe that's another advice. Share your stuff, right? Share your ideas. Don't worry about that someone will copy this. That was also something I needed to learn. The same thing with talking to competitors. I always thought in the beginning, why should we talk with competitors? No, let's keep it all secret and then we do something. But share your idea with others, because your idea will get stronger and you yourself also will get stronger, because you will get feedback you are not going to like. But at the same time, you develop yourself as well as your idea. And then it makes it even easier to start, because you will suddenly have people also telling you, start. And maybe as a third one, that is something for me, what I was mentioning earlier as well. Find people you can trust, right? Find people you can trust and you believe in, and where you can go on this crazy journey together. I know that there are very, very successful entrepreneurs in the world, and especially in the past, and actually for my dad, it was also the same, to do stuff on their own. But for me, this is almost impossible, because again, getting that feedback every day, celebrating and failing together makes you so strong. And if you don't share this feedback all the time with others, then I think you won't get challenged in the same way. And then you might take decisions which you would never take without. So maybe those 3 things are going to help. I'm not sure.
Fascinating. No, that will help a lot of people. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Well, we will wrap up there. But thank you so much for your time. It was absolutely fascinating to hear your journey so far and Zenjob's journey too. I find it remarkable how you can keep so level throughout all the highs and lows. I think that's a fascinating trait to have. So once again, thank you so much. And maybe in a few years' time, we'll do this again when Zenjob has truly taken over the world.
I'm looking forward. Let's do this. Let's absolutely do this. And thanks a lot for the questions. It's always for us as well interesting to look back, and we use this often also in our all hands and talking to the team to remember everyone why we do this and what we experienced already. And if you have them some minor problems from day to day, that can help a lot to get the bigger picture again. So yeah, thanks Alex.
Thank you so much for listening to the Building Our World podcast. To show your support and to stay up to date, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.